Everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Mind of Reese. I am here in my sweet little office, but it's fucking freezing in here. Oh my gosh, and every time I turn on the heater, I keep tripping a breaker. So I am meant to be cold today. So yeah, let's see. What have we been up to? It's been like a whirlwind. I feel like the last, just few days in the month, and I'm already feeling like, let's go, let's rage energy. and what I'm actually noticing a lot is that I was just having a conversation with one of my Beyond the Stars members who I was just letting her know that she's like an incredible pioneer to her industry. And we got to think about, like, when I think about being a pioneer, being a leader in something, paving my own way, being the fucking trailblazer, this aspect to really creating a movement, something that people believe in. I was even thinking to myself today, I was like looking at my content and I was just like, it was funny. I think in the last episode, I was talking about how my phrase of the year is everything is working. I'm just deepening and refining. And I noticed that a couple of pieces of my content didn't do what I wanted them to do. And this has been happening a couple of times actually since the start of January. And I was like, all right, what is this about? I know everything is working, but let me get curious. Let me be the explorer of my business, right? Because as the experimenter, the explorer, I'm getting curious. That's the spiritual CEO. That's the hat that we wear when we are, running a business. And so I was like, let me get really curious of this because, obviously we're very well versed around here by not taking anything fucking personal. Like, I'm not going to look at me getting 45 likes on something and being like, nobody likes me. I'm going to look at it from the perspective of like, what is spirit trying to tell me? What am I meant to learn here? And I actually said this out loud to Kayla today. And I was just like, you know what spirit's trying to tell me? I'm like, spirit's trying to tell me to stop trying to do what you did last year. Stop trying to do what you did last fucking year. Now, the way that I think about business is that when they say the phrase, you can't do, in order to grow, like you can't do what you've done before. Like the things that you have, like the things you have to do, you have to like change and all this stuff. And I don't quite actually believe that. I do believe in defining and deepening. And what I did last year was I truly stepped into the identity of the healer. I truly stepped into the identity of like just the overall healer, because I believe as a coach, I believe as a tattoo artist, I essentially what I do is I help guide people toward their own healing, period. That's what I do. And from there, we do get the tangible wins of like more money, more clients, and building out a brand, an iconic brand, and all these things. But when we build out a personal iconic brand, we definitely need to go inward. We need to have this connection to self. And so when I stepped into that healer, I was like, wow, that was very innovative. And that was pioneering a path. And so what I meant by that I can't do the same things that I do last year is that what I'm actually saying is that the thing that I did that was hard back then and that is now easy now is not the thing that's going to blow my business up this year. So what I actually have to do is go deeper. I must refine. And again, a part of my phrase for this year is everything is working. We're just deepening and refining. And so when I say deepening and refining, it means that I have to have the courage to be even more unrelatable. And it's so interesting because I was talking to one of my coaches about this, my mentors, and I was like, there is a part of me that feels like I need to be posting tattoo photos and videos in order for me to feel relatable. And the reason why I post them is because it is a part of me. However, I'm like nervous about posting like little snippets of me outside of tattooing. And even though I don't do it often. It's oftentimes me tattooing or, me tattooing in a finished product or, these kinds of things. And what's interesting is that since I have cut my tattooing time in half from last year to this year, I realized I was like, I was like, oh my gosh, I am not living in the alignment of who I am now. Where last year I had tattooed a lot and we didn't cut my tattoo time in half until middle of the year. Where now I'm only working like 6 days. I'm only tattooing 6 days a month, but I'm only posting tattoo related content, quote unquote, visually. So what I mean is like visual content that looks like me tattooing, me putting on stencils, me printing out things, me in my shop, me in a finished product, me and my clients, which is something I really love. And it's because the reason why I post it is that so that you as tattooers who are bought into the brand is that like, oh, I want to be able to relate to you that I've been where you've been, which is so good. And that's the whole point of building a brand. However, now that I'm stepping into more of the coaching role and the mentoring role and I'm tattooing a little bit less, it's actually like really weird for me to think about that. Like, I actually don't have all that much like brand new tattoo content. And it was almost like, it made me feel like I was having an identity crisis. And this was this aspect when I was talking to my mentor, I was like, I feel like if I don't post tattoo content, I won't be relatable. And obviously there's so much evidence out into the world that says that this isn't true. I obviously know that there's a lot of tattoo marketing people out there. You look at Ryan Roy and things like this. He doesn't post any of his tattooing content or anything like that. And I think there's a part of me that is really afraid to give it up. And now I'm not saying that I'm giving up tattooing. I actually don't want to at all. The one thing I do want to do is I want to lower my prices to like practically nothing one day so that like it feels like I'm just tattooing the things that I want to tattoo versus anything else and just doing it as like a fun part of my life. It's something I get to do versus something that helps me make income. And so that's like the goal. It's that like my coaching company supports me so much that I actually like a roundabout after 14 years of tattooing, I'm lowering my prices in a way that like is very just so that I can only tattoo the things that I want to do versus, having to do it for paying my bills. And that's what evolution is all about. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that I'm over here just trying to be more relatable. And now the thing is that like, I get it. As tattooers, artists, and entrepreneurs, none of us wake up thinking, today I want to be misunderstood or judged. Like, we're creatives. We're putting our art, our passion, our soul out there. And the last thing we want is for someone to misinterpret or criticize what we're doing. And so it's interesting, there's this thought of leaving people behind and feeling like I can evolve, but not so much. And I was like, oh my God, when did I put a fucking ceiling in my house? I don't have ceilings. I'm the fucking planet. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the house on the planet. I'm the motherfucking planet. Like, I am the pioneer. I am the motherfucking trailblazer. Like, I'm the one doing the thing that no one else has ever done. Like, that's what I'm doing. I am paving the fucking way. And I'm paving a way that nobody's ever paved before. And so can I do that? Can I evolve? And it was so interesting. My mentor, she has a sister who is a big YouTuber, and she got really famous on YouTube and, just blew up her business and everything via YouTube, being a content creator, because she was traveling around in her Prius. And she had said, her sister had said to my mentor, was like, man, do you think that people will still like want to follow me or love me based on the fact that I'm going to upgrade into a van instead of a Prius? Because that's the only reason why they loved me. And it's like, and when she says that out loud, I'm like, that sounds that's stupid. And of course, if they don't like it, then they can leave. And if they do like it, then they can stay, right? And so it's just really interesting when we think about this kind of stuff, because all of a sudden we're like, wow, where am I putting a ceiling on myself? Like, it makes me laugh because I've done such a like trailblazing thing by bringing spiritual, mental, emotional health into tattoo business and spiritual business, and calling myself a healer versus calling myself a tattooer or a business coach. Like, I truly believe that this is a healing business. And so it's just really interesting that like all of a sudden where we put our blind spots, where we put our caps, where we put our ceilings in our own businesses, we've got to like really see it. And now For you, you know, there is this aspect of being misinterpreted or criticized for what we're doing, or being left behind. You know, it's like being left behind, people not understanding, people wanting to, they're like, oh, well, I liked what you were doing, why are you doing anything different, right? So I think that, you know, it's important to remember, and this is something I'm reminding myself every day, and even today is like, oh gosh, I thought I knew this, and I do know this, but again, the phrase of the year is everything is working. We are deepening and refining. And that second part is so clutch and so key because of the fact that, like, I have to remind myself every day, every year, that not everyone is going to get you, and that is not only okay, it's fucking necessary. You're in the game because you've got something in the world that the world needs to see, right? You're in the game because you've got something that the world needs to see. So when you start stepping into your truth, and whatever truth that gets to be, and the evolution of that truth, when you take the plunge and put yourself out there in a big way, some people are going to look at you and think, who the fuck does this person think she is? And my answer is always going to be exactly who I say I am. And if that changes, that gets to change. And the reality is, we don't always want to face, like, the reality that we don't always want to face is that if you're doing something worthwhile, if you're pushing the boundaries, if you're presenting a bold new narrative, people are going to have opinions. People will feel left behind. People will drop off. Oh my goodness. Some will love what you're doing, and others, they'll probably project their own insecurities and fears onto you. But the question that I have to ask myself, and the question I want you to ask yourself, is, are you willing to lean into that discomfort for the sake of leadership and authenticity? So you've probably felt this before, the pull to blend in, to soften the edges of your work so that everyone feels comfortable. That was what I didn't even believe I was doing. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even have like any brand new tattoo content because I'm not tattooing all that much. But how can I not post tattoo visual content, like visualistic content, visual content? Because there's a difference between visual and verbal content, right? There's those two aspects together create the overall piece of the overall piece of content. So the visual aspect is the creative, the verbal aspect is like the captions, the messaging. And so if we put those together, they all like equal out to each other. So the way that I realize to break some of this down, even for myself, this is a really great reminder for me, is that from the time that we're kids, we are conditioned to seek approval. We're told you need to be liked, you need to fit in. From school to work, we've learned that being approved of means safety. And the thing is that of course, when you dim your light, when you water down your art or your message just to make other people comfortable, you end up betraying yourself. And in this moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm fucking betraying myself. I'm making myself small for the sake of relatability, for the sake of staying the same, for the sake of not like trying something new to blend in, to make everyone else feel safe. What does that do to my authenticity, to creativity, to leadership? Like, I'll tell you what it does. It fucking steals it. You didn't start this journey to blend in. You started it to stand out. You started this journey to create something no one else could, to innovate and to lead. And the thing is relatability really a core value, or is leadership? Because the thing is that if you are constantly trying to be relatable to everyone, you'll never stand out to anyone. And I don't care if you're an artist creating tattoos or an entrepreneur building a brand, doesn't matter. Relatability won't make you unforgettable. Leadership will. So leadership, and this is something I teach a lot in the ARC, my membership, or in Beyond the Stars, is leadership. What that actually means to lead, it means two things. Number one, that you're able to lead yourself through hard times. And we like to do it with ease around here. So that I love to teach, do hard things with ease. But the second, leading, what leading is that you are willing to do it in front of others. And so you think about some of the boldest action, or the boldest like icons, like people that we know and love, like Lady Gaga, Rihanna, or your favorite tattoo artist, hell, even the ones you admire from the outside who might seem like they have it all. They feel like they all have it all figured out. But do you think that they're sitting around wondering, will everyone like this? Will everyone get it? Like, Lady Gaga is like iconic fucking meat suit. She was like, she could have been thinking like, fuck, PETA might fucking do something about this or whatever. And, you know, she made a really big statement about meat without, so many statements with that meat suit, just without even thinking about what statements some of them might have been. But she's not asking, will they like this? She's saying, does this align with my vision? Does this represent who I am? And that, my friend, is where the courage lies. That's the courage to be unrelatable. The courage to show up in your fullest expression, even when it makes people feel really uncomfortable. And you can't be afraid of being misunderstood if you want to build a lasting legacy, a legacy business, something that lasts a lifetime, especially in an industry like tattooing, where self-expression is at the core of everything that we do. And let's also just address the elephant in the room, the fear of being misunderstood. Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's easy to let go of that fear. I'm literally telling you a story on how I feared not posting fucking tattoo content. Like, I fear it. I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't post tattoos, like, does that not make me a tattoo artist anymore? Like, what does that mean? You know, what does that mean? What does that mean about me? And this is like where my identity is really shifting. It's really uncomfortable as hell. It stings when you feel like someone's judging you or misinterpreting what you do. It stings when you're doing it to yourself. I'm like, who am I? I'm having an existential moment. I'm always having, if I'm not having an existential moment, then I'm not growing. I was feeling good. And then all of a sudden this new year, I was like, wow, there's a lot of new things that are happening. The new year always brings up this type of energy of cleansing and burning away and becoming anew, and this like savage and like, let's fucking go energy. And all of a sudden you're like, am I going to continue to do the same thing? Or am I going to let go of this fear? Because letting go of the fear is fucking uncomfortable. Yes, we know this. It stings when you feel like someone's judging you or misinterpreting what you're about. Whether it's a client who doesn't get your vision or a hater who thinks you're too much, quote unquote. It's not fun. It's never fun. But here's the thing I want you to remember. Criticism is rarely about you. And most of the time it's about someone else's wounds, their own fears and projections getting triggered by your boldness. And although that's really tough to hear when people see you doing the thing they're too scared to do, you know, that's what's happening, is that like they're putting their own fears and projections out on you. I'm putting my own past version, like the past version of me, her fears and projections onto me, onto future me. That's what I'm doing. It's all a mere thing by me saying, oh, well, I was doing it because I was being relatable. I couldn't even believe I used the word. I was like laughing so hard at myself when I actually said it out loud. It was like, this is what I love about having mentors. All of a sudden, you don't really, sometimes like when you're so close with your mentors, you're not really thinking about what you're saying. And so the thing that you say actually is the truth of your soul, instead of you trying to like be some perfect polished, you know, client for your mentor. And so then all of a sudden she was like, relatable? What? When have you ever been like super, you're relatable being a human. You're relatable by evolving. You're relatable, but it depends on who you want to be relatable to. You know what I mean? It really just depends. So if I want to be relatable to the people that judge or whatever, that's cool. But where's that going to get me in my business, right? So anytime I even think about this, I'm like, oh yeah, of course I already know. This is how we learn how to alchemize. This is what I do in the Body Wise and Wealthy method, especially when we are fear of showing up, showing our faces. Because we know that when people do project their fears onto us, like, and spew like fucking venom, people are oftentimes just so scared of what you are doing because there is no way that they could do it themselves. So they project onto you. Whether that's speaking your truth or creating art that feels really risky, they'll project their discomfort onto you. They'll judge you. They'll criticize you. And it's not personal, but it does feel that way. So the process I want you to follow when the criticism comes, and trust me, it will come. You're putting yourself out there. That's the cost of being apologetically you. So first ask yourself, is there any truth in what they're saying? Right? If the answer is yes, then great. You've got an opportunity to refine your work, to grow and to evolve. If the answer is no, recognize that that's their story, not yours. Bless it, block it, release it, keep moving forward. And see, it's really interesting because sometimes when I think about hate or lack of validation, which is like not the expectation of likes or follows or whatever else you're expecting, you know, what kind of engagement that you're expecting from your piece of content. I do teach my program in Beyond the Stars. I have several programs in there that you get access to, but in Beyond the Stars, I teach setting goals for your content. And oftentimes, it's like a hit or miss, but if you get it like 70% of your content's doing what you're doing, then what you want it to do, then you're doing great, right? And so like for me, I feel like, I would say anywhere good for like 60-70% of my content normally does what I want it to do. And if it doesn't, then that's something for me to refine, deepen, and get curious and experiment more and become explore like what else is possible out there. And so that's what happened to me today. When I was looking at my content, I was like, this just isn't hitting. Like I haven't had content that hasn't hit in a while, and where it's not just like totally profound, hitting people on their heartstrings, like really making movements, making waves, and really like disrupting and activating, people emotionally in their nervous system. And so when that's not happening, I'm like, where am I playing small? Where am I trying to do what I did last year? Where am I not just like honoring the fact that maybe I need to think about this a little bit more thoroughly? And so when I think about, when I'm asking myself, what is the truth in what I believe? So when I told you to ask yourself, is there any truth in what they're saying? But also, is there any truth in what I'm believing? Is there any truth in my believing that people just don't like me, that I get no validation, which is not the case. It's mostly never the case, I would say, but I don't like to say never. It's mostly not the case just because I understand how to channel and funnel any interesting feelings within the body, especially around validation. It's not about them not liking me, but it's about me not liking me if that's something that I hear in my body. I'm like, oh, okay, so this is something we have to move through. And this is an opportunity for me to refine. So I was like, okay, well, I'm noticing this is what's happening within my content. What about it am I not like full sending? Where am I playing small? Where am I not saying the thing that I want to say? And yet I'm instead going in a direction that things that I've maybe said before, or, I have to follow the certain, brand look and page look. And I just noticed that that's what's happening. And I'm like, wow, okay, this is what's happening. And I had already declared this year that I was like, I'm ready to evolve. I'm ready to let's keep going. Like, this is a never ending journey. Like, let's keep going. And so when I think about not only their opinions, not letting their opinions derail your journey, but not also letting my own beliefs derail my journey. Because nobody builds an empire, whether in tattoos, business, or life, happens by micromanaging what other people think and what you're thinking about what other people think. You know what I mean? Because most of the time, that's really where it's at. It's not just that people are saying hate. It's actually what I think is happening, what I'm making meaning of the thing that's happening, the experience that I'm happening. Yes, I'm getting low engagement. Does that mean that I'm shadow banned? Or does that mean that nobody likes me? Or does it mean the other thing where I'm like, hey, where are you playing small? Where are you trying to be relatable? Where are you not saying the thing you want to say, but you didn't say it because of some sort of excuse? Those are the questions I'm really moving towards. Those are more elevated questions. Those are the questions that are like really going to take you above and beyond. Tony Robbins says the quality of your questions, the quality of life that you'll live. And so I've got to ask myself better questions. And so this is what I'm doing. And I will say that being unrelatable doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you close yourself off to connection, but it does mean you stop sacrificing your authenticity just to control how others perceive you. And when you show up as your truest, most unapologetic version of yourself, you become a magnet for the right people. Your ideal clients, collaborators, supporters, all of the above. And the ones who just get you. And yes, some people won't get it. And it's so interesting because I'm like, I didn't even realize that that's what I was afraid of. Like deep down, it was a tiny, subtle feeling within my body that I was like, I'm actually afraid that people just won't get it. And that the people that are currently following me and love me will fall off and that I'm leaving them behind. It's really interesting, these subtleties within the body. The body is always trying to give you answers, to tell you things. And again, I teach the Body Wise and Wealthy method in the ARC, to where you learn the language of what your body is actually trying to tell you. The fear, the doubt, the shame, the confusion, the overwhelm, the overwork, all of those feelings is your body actually trying to have a conversation with you. And when we lean into it, we actually can hear what it's actually trying to say versus the story that we have glued to the sensation within the body because we were taught that since infancy, since childhood. So I'm learning, I'm like, I know the language of my body. I understand it. So then these subtle feelings of, wow, I'm actually really afraid that people won't like me. Let me go in there. And I have many, many different practices, somatic practices, body practices that I teach and I do myself every single day to move the energy in a way that actually aligns with me and helps me lean into my edge and fucking take action. So some people might not like it. Some people might not get it. The thing is, those people, they were never meant for you anyway. So here's what I want you to take away from all of this. Leadership requires courage. Relatability is optional. Your goal isn't to be liked by everyone. Your goal is to be unforgettable to the right people. And when you embody that, you stop exhausting yourself trying to make everyone happy. And you step into your power and your vision and your leadership and you create impact. And let me tell you, this is how you make a difference. And this is how you create a movement. And for those moments when it feels hard, when the criticism stings, or you're letting the stories take over in your own mind and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, this is who I am. This is where, like, they're not going to like me anymore. They're going to hate this new way I'm doing it. This is really scary. And it's interesting because this is actually a conversation I was having with one of my private clients, one-on-one clients. And I was like, I'm asking you to do this. And I'm over here being like, I'm holding back. So this is also just like a podcast and testament, some advice that I'm offering to myself as well. So in those moments where it does feel hard, I want you to ask the questions, what about being misunderstood feels so threatening? What about being misunderstood feels so threatening? And it is, like, I can even, just the word threat in my body happens. Like, I can feel that in my chest and my throat and all squeezing. And I'm like, wow. There are aspects to where we grow and we grow and we grow and we stretch and we stretch and we stretch. And then we get into this cozy little space. And although, like, my nervous system is stretched pretty fucking wide, I feel like I hold a lot of clients, I hold a lot of income, and I hold a lot of impact and a lot of influence. And for me, it's like just 1% of what I know that I can hold. But in order for me to hold more, I got to continue to lean into the edge. So I got to stretch and stretch and stretch and stretch. But right now I'm in the comfy zone. I'm like, oh, this is comfy. Let's keep doing the thing. But then, of course, I get into spaces with badass 6, 7, 8-figure earners who are just living life in crazy, delusional, unicorn, take it to Mars, fucking off with their head kind of fucking energy. Where I'm like, whoa, I love being in this energy because then it allows me to see where I am stifling myself. Because we all do it. And we all need someone to help us see our own blind spots. So what about being misunderstood feels threatening? And the second question is, does staying relatable align with my values, or does it dilute my leadership? So relatability isn't a part of my values. I don't need one of my values, which is something I also love to help you depict within your own brand, so that's what you're consistently speaking into in the online space, is that your values will, your values will lead your movement, your brand. But my values have nothing to do with relatability. I'm relatable just by being human. I'm always going to be relatable to someone, but who do I want to be relatable with? And if that me by being relatable in some form dilutes or causes me to be small in order not to grow farther or faster than others can handle, that don't align with my values. Because my values are growth. That's such a contradiction. If my value is growth, but my value is also relatability, I'm stifling my growth just trying to be relatable. And I ain't about that life because I refuse to dilute my leadership. So being misunderstood is the price of being fully you. I'd say it's fucking worth it. Because when you stop trying to tone yourself down and when you stop adjusting to fit into someone else's idea of what's acceptable, you actually create deeper connections. You stop appealing to the masses and start resonating with the people who need exactly what you have to offer. So let them whisper, let them judge. And if you hear the whispers in your own mind and the judgments in your own mind from you, your ego, from the inner child, the part of you that's just trying to protect you, love on those parts, accept those parts, hear them. Listen, lean in. You got bigger things to do than worry about opinions that don't serve your vision. The greatest energy leak in the world isn't criticism. It's micromanaging what others think about you. Clean that up and you'll be fucking unstoppable. So when you align your values, your vision, and your truth, you step into a level of consistency and embodiment that no fucking critic can shake. Not the inner critic and not an outer critic. And when you lead from that place, you don't just create a movement, you become the movement. You stop worrying about being relatable and you start focusing on being real. That's really where the magic happens. All right, guys, I love you so much. I needed this podcast episode, I think, the most. But I'm hoping that some of y'all needed it too. I hope to see you in the ARC. If you haven't joined us, you should. You get 7 days for free this time around. I think we're doing that all of January. And if that's not tickling your fancy and you want more, you're always welcome to come and join us in BTS and submit your application. I love you guys so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. See you on the next episode.